Welcome everyone to Liberty Talk Radio. This is Joe Cristiano. I'll be your host this morning. Folks, it's really time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And folks, this program is just about that. We invite you to call this morning to 855-866-1170. That's 855-866-1170. You will not be interrupting me, and even if you do, this is your program. It's meant for you. So please call with any questions anytime. We'll be here for you for the next hour. You can send us your emails anytime to comments@libertytalkradio.com. Well, folks, obviously a lot has gone on this week, but a lot goes on every single week. And herein lies the problem, is that we are all fixated on the events that are occurring around us, and not even around us, but from us, 7,000 miles away. We are bombarded with information on what is happening in Syria, what is happening in the Gaza Strip, what is happening in Iran. Now, I have a question for somebody out there, and please give me an answer. Why does this affect me? How does this affect me? Why should I even know? And I, quite frankly, my dear, as Red Butler said to, what was her name? Red Butler's, to Charlotte O'Hara, yeah. Charlotte O'Hara, I have a crew here at the office. I tell you, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't know what to say. But just, quite frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Now, when you really think about it, that has nothing to do with us. Now, you can argue saying, we have to keep up with international events so that we'll know what's going on. But what for? Who cares? You need to understand that the peoples up above, those people in the clouds somewhere that run this country, create these problems and then distract us from what we should be doing to protect ourselves, making ourselves more vulnerable to any catastrophe or any hardship here, thus making us more dependent on them. What a scheme! It's a great program. These guys, we hear all the time, the people in Washington, they're stupid. They don't know what they're doing, man. If I went there, I'd tell them what to do. I know what to do. No, they're brilliant. They're brilliant statisticians. They know exactly what they're doing. The problem is that we don't know what we are doing. Think about it. How many hours this week did you spend in front of the TV set or listening to the radio on items that couldn't affect you? No way. The 16 Ways from Sunday could not really affect you in any way, shape, or form. Now, you know the answer to that. It's an embarrassing thing, It's embarrassing. I very rarely talk about the news because I don't watch the news. It doesn't affect me. Now, I'll tell you when it does affect me. If there's a tornado, I'll turn on and find out where the tornado is so I'll know when to go into my tornado shelter. Short of that, means nothing to me. I want to spend my time on my family. Me, myself, and I. Very selfish. You'd have to go far and wide to find a person more selfish than I am in that regard. I am not going to waste my time listening to garbage on television and then place my family in jeopardy because I was not prepared. Now, you can't argue with that, can you? Of course not. You can't argue with that. We said, well, that makes sense. I should do that. But we don't do it. Look at this Petraeus affair. Well, quite frankly, who can, you have to understand, let me explain how the government works, or any large organization works. It's very simple, but we don't think of it this way. You have people at the bottom that may be the nicest people in the world. Many of them have aspirations of going all the way to the top, becoming the chief executive officer, president, or whatever. And you have others that just want a job. And many of them join the company with the best of intentions. They're morally straight, all that stuff. And they're good people. Now, when you're in that lower rungs, how do you get to the top? Do you get to the top by doing what you think is the right thing? Or do you get to the top by making your boss look good? Now, I tell you, it is a internationally accepted axiom that you make your boss look good. That's the only way you get to the top. And you see, as you go up the ladder in any corporation, especially in government, right, the more you have to compromise your morals and your principles to a point that when you reach a certain level, you are so incredibly corrupt. And you have corrupted yourself to such a point you don't even recognize who you are anymore. And you have a choice. Either get out, make a confession, and go straight, or continue on the path. Now, we have junior congressmen, for example, or junior senators that are elected, and they say they're going to do this, this, and that. Those people who truly intend to clean house are given no responsibility at all. Those that really have a selfish motive and want to stay with the system sell you and me out, and they get ahead. Then they get on the appropriations subcommittee, all these other things, the defense subcommittee, and they are corrupt. And as you go up, it becomes more and more corrupt. Now, when you become president, how corrupt is that? I don't care if you like a president, don't like a president, and don't give me this, oh, Reagan did this. Put that away for a second. It's a corrupt system. So now that you're up there, you're vice president, president, speaker of the House, probably the worst, but all of them. And you have to make a decision. What decisions are you going to make? For the good of the country or good of the system? See, it'll always be for the system, always. Because the second it is not, all of a sudden, something happens to you. And I'm a firm believer, when Kennedy signed that executive order to do away with the Federal Reserve, he met with a bullet. A 6.5 times 55, right? Or 52 caliber. They call it a Carcano rifle. Met him, bink, right in the back of the head. Isn't that unusual? You don't fight the system. When you're in, you buy into the system. If you don't, you either get out or you stay at the lowest rung where you have no authority. Do you understand that, folks? The higher you go, the more corrupt it gets. So when people say to you, oh, no, he says everyone's corrupt, that's not true. I know some good people in government. And my girlfriend, Harriet, works for the Department of Human Services, and she's a nice person. She really cares. And I'm not talking about Harriet. I'm talking about the people who make the decisions. Harriet just goes to work, pushes paper all day, sees some people, tries to help out. Wonderful person, Harriet. Wish she was my neighbor. I'd love to have coffee with her every morning, but I'm not talking about Harriet. I'm talking about the people who run the place. Now, these same people, understand, these same people are the ones that are communicating with other, even as corrupt or more corrupt governments overseas, 7,000 miles away. They are making a decision whether or not we go to war. In other words, how we're going to increase our industrial production and make money for a select few. They're going to make that decision. You're not part of that process. The only part of the process that involves you, the only part that involves you is that they need your sons and daughters to go overseas to die so they can make more money. Isn't that hurt? That should hurt like hell. You should be so damn mad you can't stand it anymore. And that's where I am. I'm so damn mad I can't stand it anymore. I have no enemies in Iran. Not one. And I'll bet if I went to Iran today, somehow I was allowed to fly there and just be there, I would be treated better there than I am treated here in the United States. I would make more friends. I'd have no enemies. Now, why would I want to nuke Iran? Why would I want to impose an embargo on Iran, causing people there to starve and die because of lack of medical care, medicines, and food? Why would I want to do that? I have no beef with them at all. In fact, I do have Iranian friends. They're wonderful people. Now, people that I think are wonderful, my government wants to convince me that we should go to war with. Against, I should say. Now, could someone please call in 855-866-1170 and explain that to me? You see, and then we get into Israel. I have no problem with Israel, but I don't want to give them $3, $4, $5 billion every year so they can buy war machines to go to war. You see my point? It has nothing to do with you, nor I, nor anyone else that's a citizen of the United States. Nothing. We're like people at the lowest rung of the corporation. I mean, you and I are in the mailroom. What we've been asked to do is sort the mail and shut up. We're not making any decisions. I don't care who you think you are. Write all the letters you want to every congressman you know. Write them every day. Email, text, however you want to do it. It means absolutely nothing, and you know that. Now, we have this Petraeus. All week long, they absorbed. They stole our time. Petraeus. You know, and I want to chastise just every single talk show host in America. Every one of them. I give no one pardon on this. Every one of them. Conservative, liberal, progressive, neocon, you name them, all across the board. What do they talk about all week? Petraeus banged this girl, you know, bangy, all week. Why do I care? He's banging all these broads. What do I care? I know that's inappropriate to say on the radio, but what do I care? What I do care is I wasn't there having fun with him. And if my wife heard that, she'd go, "Don't ever say that again on the radio. That is terrible." You know what I'm saying? What it has nothing. The guy's a CEA droop. Why the heck do I care what he's doing? And the thing is, those people that are going to prosecute him, they're like Lily White. They've never been in the bangy business. Oh no, they're pure. They're holy. They can go and they can judge everyone else. They're all rotten. You have rotten people judging rotten people at our expense. And he was so important to the United States. Yeah, he was important to the United States. He's part of the war machine. He's done absolutely nothing but harm to the United States. Oh, look what he did in Iraq and Iran. More, that's what I mean. He's killing people I like, quite frankly. And innocent people. And all we have to talk about all week long. I mean, you couldn't get a radio talk show host to talk about anything else. I'd say there would have been a nuclear war going on. They would have put that on the back burner. But they had to talk about, Petraeus this, and we found another girl in the back room. And we glued to the radio, glued to the TV. We can't stop talking about it. And now I have a question for you. I have a question for you folks. We're going to take a break right after this question. Are you in better position to survive anything that would happen? Anything. Whether it be an ice storm, a tornado, or whatever, or a financial collapse, more prepared this week than you were last week, or did you blow another week listening to the Petraeus situation? All right, let's take a break. Okay, folks, we're back. I want to remind you that our telephone number is 855-866-1170. Let me hear from you. Comments at LibertyTalkRadio.com. If you'd like to send me email, that's comments at LibertyTalkRadio.com. Please, I'd like to hear from you. I'd like this to be an exchange of ideas. Now, I do get plenty of emails, and by the way, quite frankly, I haven't been told to drop dead, go to hell yet, in a long time, in fact, and I'm really pleased with that. And you can visit our email, our website at libertytalkradio.com. Easy to remember. Now, folks, before I go on, one thing that you can do is to start getting prepared is call Gary Murphy at 918-271-2523. Now, he's in the long-term storage business. Everyone should have some food stored. If you go to a store, now I've done this. I bought like a whole rack of corn or peas or whatever in cans, and time flies by, and then I'm looking, I'm saying, oh boy, it's going to expire soon. Now, it's usually good well after the expiration date, but you need food that will last a long time because time flies. You know that. And you can go to his website. Write this down or try to make it's Liberty Food, singular, libertyfood.mygofoods.com, libertyfood.mygofoods.com. And it spells it all out, the type of foods that you can buy. And it's really it's not for so much wacko stuff. It's to be prepared. Everyone should be prepared. There are many organizations, religious organizations, that require that everyone in the congregation always be prepared with 1, 2, or 3 years worth of food, so you are not a bother or a burden to your brethren. And that makes sense. And remember, when we Boy Scouts, be prepared. All right, I want you to do that. Go call Gary Murphy. I think you'll learn a lot, and it's a thing you should do. Now, why don't we do what we're supposed to do? Why did we spend so much time, for example, listening? I want to bring up a current event. I very rarely do this. The Hostess Cupcake place is called Interstate Brands. Now, I am dismayed that they are going under and they're closing up. You know why? Because they're an account of my industrial company. We do industrial health testing. They're a regular client of ours, so we lost a considerable amount of business. So I would prefer to stay open. But realistically, folks, this company has been on the economic, point of success failure for a long time. They filed bankruptcy one time before, I believe. People get jobs with the company. Now, this is when people have to start thinking. They say, I'm going to be employed by a company, that is not financially secure. There's a possibility that they won't make it. Now, just think, if they did that, then they walked into that store place and said, they would know what to do. They say, hey, I have a job today. I may not have a job tomorrow. To be responsible to myself and my family, I need to prepare. I need to have a backup plan, some sort of backup plan, another job, develop a skill, become a musician, play at night at gigs. I'm just mentioning that. Anything. I know a lot of guys have regular jobs and they're great musicians, and should they lose their job, they can make good money, playing in a band. But it can be anything. Cabinet maker. I don't care what it is. Mowing lawns. Anything. But their consciousness is, I have this job now. I may not have it 1 minute from now. And that's being prepared. So they're always preparing in the event something happens. Now you say, well, that's a pessimistic attitude. I'm a lot more, I have hope and all this stuff. When you think about hope, think of the Three Little Pigs. Piggy number 1 with the straw house had plenty of hope, right? Piggy number 2 with the Twiggy house, he had a lot of hope. Piggy number 3 that prepared, didn't have any hope, knew what to do. Let's take a caller. Michael, you're on the air. Michael, you're on the air. Did we lose it? We lost Michael. Mike, you're on the air. Are you there? Okay, Mike, I'm going to hang up. If I hang up and somehow just call back, okay? I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Well, Mike has been holding on for about 3 minutes or so, and then we lost him. I guess we hung up at the same time. I clicked in when he hung up. Well, that's life. Yeah. Now, why do we do that? Now, understand that, and people all over corporate America, because they should give the employees 60 days notice, but bing, bada bang, bada boom. Folks, let me be honest. Let's look at it. Any employment contract between an employee and employer is an open-ended contract that says, look, I'll hire you, and I can fire you whenever I want. You say, well, that's mean, Joe. What's the matter with you? Don't you care about your fellow man and all that crap? No. But understand that there's no shackles around the ankles of the employee. See, the employee can start at 8 o'clock on Monday morning and quit at 9 o'clock Monday morning, and there's no obligation on his part or her part whatsoever. An employee can go to a company and spend 3 weeks in training to acquire a skill or whatever to do the job. And after the 3 and get paid for it, full pay. And if they work overtime, they'll get time and a half. They'll get paid, right? No problem. And then after 3 weeks, the employee goes, well, you know, I thought this would be a little bit different. I'm quitting. Walks out, no notice at all. That's okay. But think about it. See, it's equal both ways. If an employee can walk out after the company has spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars training the person's produced absolutely nothing at this point, and after training, walk out and be a trained whatever they trained, walk out with that skill. It's like going to school. Technically, the way it should work, if someone came to my company, and I would love to do this someday, but I would get thrown in jail, and someone said, I want to be an audiometric technician, I want to be a pulmonary function specialist or whatever. I'd say, fine, we can train you this and that. This is how much it will cost. Think about it. That would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm going to train somebody. I'm going to give them schooling and get them all the certificates and all this other, and pay them. And then the person says, I don't want to do it. I'm going to work for your competitor. And I can do nothing about it. Perfectly legal. People are, well, that's the way it is, tough luck, Joe. But then if an employer says, we're broke, we got to let people off, everyone goes to hell in a handbasket. We need 60 days, 60 days, we need notice and all this. Come on, folks, let me hear from you. The lines are empty, and I don't like that. Don't get me mad. Don't get me angry, because I'm in a good mood this morning. 855-866-1170. 855-866-1170. But we're going to take a break first, okay? Let's do that first. We're back, folks, and I hope you're still listening in. Obviously, you don't know I'm saying that unless you're listening in. Let me make something very clear. I would prefer to have half the audience that I normally could have if I was talking about current events, provided the people that are listening are learning something. We learn something together. And by working together, we all improve our position on this earth. We all are prepared more. We are all better off as a result of this program. Rather than having 2 or 3 times the audience because I'm talking about current events that people have heard 10 times before, but it's interesting, I would sacrifice this program for the benefit of the listeners who are really going to do something. But those people who just want to listen, oh, yeah, man, that's all I'm listening, this program really is not for you. How about that? It's really not for you. Now, if you think, this program is not for me because I don't agree, then call in and tell me where you don't agree. Let's get the ball rolling on all ends, on your end and on my end. That's the important thing. Folks, we ask, we need to do things most people don't. Most people don't act. And the reason why they don't, it's what is known as normalcy bias. Now, it's an interesting term, but it actually is an official psychological term. And I very rarely will read anything on the air because it sounds like you're reading it. I'm going to read this because it's this pertinent. The normalcy bias or normality bias refers to a mental state people enter when facing a disaster. It causes people to underestimate both the possibility of a disaster occurring and its possible effects. This often results in situations where people fail to adequately prepare for a disaster. And on a larger scale, the failure of government to include the populace in its disaster preparations. The assumption that is made in the case of a normalcy bias is that since a disaster never has occurred, then it will never occur. It also results in the inability of people to cope with a disaster once it occurs. People with normalcy bias have difficulty reacting to something they have not experienced before. People also tend to interpret warnings in the most optimistic possible way, seizing on any ambiguities to infer a less serious situation. Now, it's, in other words, putting your head in the sand. Last week I told about a neighbor of mine, wonderful person, when I mentioned I didn't vote. And why? I mean, she almost went into tears and ran into the house and said, "You took away my host." She has a high case of normalcy bias. By the way, we all have it. We all have it. Let's take a caller. Paul, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning. Fine. How you doing?
Good. Well, all right. Well, you talked about people actually standing up and doing something. What organizations out there do you think are on the right track? In other words, the Tea Party, maybe the Texas Nationalists. You know, there's a lot of problems out there.
Right. Paul, generally speaking, let me say this. I would stay away from, at this point, most of the national organizations, you know, except if you have a group of people, and I hate to use this term because if I use this term, people have no idea what I'm talking about, you know, people with a libertarian bent. In other words, people who realize how bad the system is, you know, and want to divorce themselves as much as possible from the government and just have a government to ensure that the Constitution, you know, is not corrupted, which is too late for that. So I would suggest that you align yourself with local organizations. Now, as far as the Tea Party is concerned, forget the Tea Party. The Tea Party represents only people who are frustrated for every single reason. Could be that you lost your job and you're mad, you know, you're angry. The Tea Party has no philosophical foundation whatsoever. Now, I agree that they're angry and I'm angry. But we would not, if I had to sit down with 10 people of the Tea Party, you would find 10 totally different reasons why and 10 totally different reasons what the solution would be, most of which would include government. So I would avoid that. I would get involved with local organizations. For example, this Sunday, today, in fact, this afternoon at 2:45 at the Hardesty Library, there's going to be a what do they call it, a preppers meeting? Someone in the studio help me. A preppers meeting at 2:45? Yeah, they call Oklahoma Preppers. And I went to one of the meetings, and it's terrific. I mean, these guys are really smart guys. I mean, they're not wackos. And they talk about how we should start individually preparing for any sort of disaster. That I would do. In those meetings, then you meet other people who are involved with other organizations that are local and involved with individuality, with making certain that the individual survives, you know, and trumps the government, basically. You know, that becomes first. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but isn't that a little bit, isn't that a lot reactionary?
Ha-ha, exactly. You just...
Well, wait a minute, though. But that doesn't sound like fixing something, though. It sounds to me that the only way to fix this problem is all-out revolution and civil war. What are you going to do with, let's say, half the population? I'm just speculating on that. Half the population here in America that are willing to vote for a guy like Obama. And it's not just the thing about voting for a guy like Obama. It's the idealism behind it. So you got a lot of people in this country that, you know, they think that certain way that goes against Western civilization. And what are you going to do about these people? They're not going away.
Right. You're absolutely correct. And that's why you need to prepare as an individual and divorce yourself from the system altogether. But what was your option? If you didn't vote for Obama, who did you have to vote for? Who was your option?
I don't think there really is an option. Personally, I think race is a bigger issue than the mainstream media leads people to believe.
But it may be, but I don't want to get off the track because we're moving off the track. You said, well, there was no option. And this goes back to my earlier conversation with you guys and saying, with the audience, saying, the whole system is corrupt. There's, you can't work in a corrupt system. It's like going to the mafia and saying, hey, guys, I want to clean this place up. Let's not kill anybody anymore. No more drugs, no more of this, no more of that. Okay, are you with me? It doesn't make any sense. You cannot work within a corrupt system. That's not possible.
Well, then,
they didn't give us
Well, then it's high time for revolution. How come I never hear anybody talking about going over to the White House and kicking the door in? I mean, doesn't it say there in the Constitution part of the reason why the bear and keep arms is also to, put this government in check when they're completely out of line?
You're absolutely
Don't you think
correct.
They're out of line.
Right.
I mean, it's out of control now.
Now, if you can get yourself about 10 million, about 5 million people, you can probably do that. It'd be pretty tough to do. But the first thing, we're at the stage now, in my opinion, of us aligning ourselves with everyone else there are many people who think as you and I do. We need to align ourselves with like-minded people because right now the corrupt people are pretty well in tune with one another. They belong to organizations in the Progressive Party and this party, the Republican Party and all that other stuff. We don't have that. We need to start doing that, but not to counteract, but to protect ourselves. That's the only thing we can do. And should there be something that, like, for example, if one of the states secede from the Union, then we're talking about pretty heavy-duty stuff. And I think that's what you have to wait for.
Well, personally, I think that succession is an attractive platform.
I agree.
I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, and maybe, in other words, it's something that seems to me a lot more proactive instead of reactionary. I think that when times really, really, really get bad, then that's when people are going to stand up and do something. And I think that's not the time to do it. I think people should be more proactive.
Right. If in fact you got a whole bunch of people and marched on Washington and with the intent of doing, rioting or something like that, you'd all be shot, and it would be on television, a bunch of nuts, and the government protected you from all these terrorists. It would not work, unfortunately, and I'm not saying that we should inflict harm on anyone else. I'm just saying let us protect ourselves from what is we see what's going to happen. When the book is written a few years from now, they're going to say, where were these people? What were they thinking about? I mean, they just stood there. Remember the Jews in Germany, they stood there as people were being slaughtered to Auschwitz and Dachau, and they were sent there. And people next door who knew they were going, they say, well, that can't happen to me. That's what we're doing now. All I want to do is break that normalcy bias to put people into motion, to say, I really must do something. Listening to the news the mainstream media news will not improve my station in life and is not going to protect my family at all.
Yeah, I always thought that, especially Fox News, just a pressure release valve to, make people think that there's somebody out there doing something for them. And personally, I think that anybody who speaks on the mainstream media is coming out with a very ineffective attack.
Yeah. Well, okay, Paul.
Listen, I got to go back to work.
All right. Good for you.
Right. Well,
Thank you for calling in.
program.
Thank you. And tell all your friends to listen in, and let's all get on the same program, okay? Civil disobedience is okay with me. All right. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to hang up. I'm sorry. Had to go. But, Paul brings up a good point. What are we going to, we're so frustrated we want to just march on. If they did that, we would be televised as being nuts, terrorist, subversive organizations, and the government's got to protect itself so we can continue these wonderful programs for the needy. You name it. They would be vilified 16 ways from Sunday. You would never clean up the mess. You can't do that. It's not a realistic way to go. I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, say, hey, get rid of the abuse of government and put really good people in. Put a Ron Paul in there as president, But it's not going to happen. But, I want to get back to this normalcy bias. We have to change this normalcy bias. There's a story that I read just last week about this woman who just bought a house in California, in the hills of California, brand new, and bingo. she's coming home from the store, and there's fire all over the place. She rides up to the car. Now, she knows, the fires are dangerous up there. This is the first time she owned a house in that area. And she drove to the car. She said, let me grab just a few of my possessions, that I need to get, and put them in the car and escape, the fires. She got into a house, and then she couldn't leave. And she writes a story about this, on what she did step by step, and how she could not get to leave. The normalcy bias, with the flames following her. In fact, the only time she left is when it became unbearably hot in her house because the flames were so close. And she escaped, just barely escaped with her life. And she talks, please don't let this normalcy bias affect you. The Jews, we all do it, folks. We all have it. Let's take another call. Larry, you're on the air. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio.
Yes, sir. You were mentioning corrupt organizations earlier, and you left out the bar, the I-bar.
I'm sorry. We have a bad connection. Could you repeat that, please? I didn't hear that at all.
None of it?
No, none of it. Start over again.
Well, you were mentioning corrupt organizations.
Yes.
Earlier in your call with Paul, I believe.
Yes.
And you didn't mention the bar.
Oh, the Bar Association. Oh, okay, yeah.
B-A-R.
Yeah, okay.
The British Aristocracy Registry, sir.
Oh, okay.
British Aristocracy Registry.
Okay.
The I-bar. They have permeated everything. They run our state. They run our government. They run our country. And until we organize and do something about it, all this is...
Are you talking about the attorneys? The
International Bar Association. For us, it comes down to the county bars, the state bars, the USA bar.
Yeah, and that's
associated with
the Bar Association. You mean the ones that attorneys belong to?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, hey, you're right. Most organizations are that way. I mean, they're there for a reason. And they're there to not help the populace or, it's not for the general good. It's to protect, or to enhance the situation that they have and to lobby in Washington. Oh, yeah. I think most organizations are corrupt. I agree. And I didn't know about the I-bar, but you're right. You're probably right. I can disagree with you.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, the bar was set up by the banksters of England.
I didn't know that.
In the 1600s, and they've been a nemesis for this country from the beginning.
But isn't it interesting that most of our elected officials are also attorneys?
Yes, that's a problem with our form of government. There's three divisions of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial.
Right.
And almost all of them, the judicial are lawyers.
That's correct.
Are bar members, and bar members by law in this state.
Right.
Because if you'll get in your state statutes, you'll see that it starts out by saying that the bar has a special relationship with our Supreme Court.
Right.
I think that's scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But then these people are educated so they can become elected, and they've taken over the legislative division and the executive division.
Right. Well, Paul, Larry, I'm sorry, Larry. I think that's more reason to stop looking outside for organizations and start be more introspective to improve your station in life, to protect you and your family. And don't rely on anyone. Become as independent as possible. And I was going to talk about independence today. We ran out of time. Next week or the following week, we're going to talk about how you go about becoming more independent from the system. And it's not wacko stuff. It's very simple stuff. It's stuff that we already know, but we don't think about. Okay, Larry, thank you so much for calling Liberty Talk Radio. Appreciate the call. And Larry, if you're still listening, if you can send me a email address with a T-shirt size and a mailing address, I'll send you a Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt. Okay, we're going to take another break. All right, folks, we're back. I'd like you to call 855-866-1170 or your comments to comments@libertytalkradio.com. And you can also visit our website at libertytalkradio.com. We make it very simple here. You're listening to 1170 KFAQ. We're proud to be affiliated with the station. It's been a wonderful job. They do a wonderful job about broadcasting, this program and allowing me to broadcast it. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm proud to be part of the KFAQ family. 855-866-1170. See how everything comes together just so beautifully around here. This last call, I've made a good point. By the way, I want to get one more call before this program goes. So let's go, 855-866-1170. Make it a quick call. We'll make 3 calls, and I'll feel much better about that. But, he makes a good point. Why don't we just march on Washington? Well, the best way to defeat the enemy is to avoid the enemy. I mean, you never, in the art of war, you never want to confront an enemy that you can't beat. So what you do is you retract, and you become stronger. You become, don't eat all the genetic modified foods. Avoid that as much as you can. Save your money. Have it in your hands and have money that is real money. Real money, not Federal Reserve certificates. You know where I'm going with that. Store some food just in case there's something going on. Have a getaway plan. No, like Gerald Celente says, gold, guns, and a getaway plan. Don't become vulnerable. If everyone was that way, boy, the government would be shaking in their boots. What do you think they want gun control? Because they want to protect the populace? No, because it gives them more power. It makes it easier for them to initiate any plans that they want. And then when they have you stripped down naked, they go, okay, this is what we're going to do. Now you do something about it. And you can't fight that by walking on Washington and kicking down the door. That makes no sense at all. You'd like to, it's a good idea, you're getting mad. Everyone's angry. Everyone who's angry needs to get together. Okay? We need to get together and we need to coalesce and build this gigantic snowball that's rolling downhill. And I'm telling you, more people are really concerned, are getting more and more concerned every single week. It's amazing. You get conversations with people that you don't know whatsoever, and they start talking about this, and you don't want to approach this because, you don't want to seem like a wacko because of the normalcy bias, and then bingo, all right? Okay, folks, this is the end of today's program. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. Folks, you can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. With that, until next time, I'm Joe Cristiano. This is Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.